If you're not emailing them, someone else is going to email them. So it's kind of like if you don't show up, like someone else is going to show up. And so you're losing money on the table.
You're talking about subject lines and like from. So from what I understood, it's always better to have like Sarah at whatever versus just like admin or info or something like that.
Or like the
right?
brand name.
Or the
even,
brand name.
Right? Yeah.
Okay. And how about subject lines? Like, I mean, subject lines, I feel I feel like people talk a lot more about like the content in the site on the email, but like I find a subject line is really like I click on certain things based on the subject line. And I think a lot of people do. So how do you find the best subject line? Do you make it like super clickbaity, like in general, or is it better to kind of be a little bit more subdued? I feel like seeing your face, I know, and people who are listening, Kyle's face when I said, a clickbaity, kind of smiled a little bit. So I'm guessing you're leaning towards there, but just kind of give me your best 2-3 practices for subject lines.
Yeah. I mean, like for sure, I would say like test, like, especially for email, like I live in data. So whether it's what offer to send or what subject line to use, like we live in data. And like I said, like we built our own software that has AI that after testing so many products, testing different creatives, it literally tells us what to send. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different strategies. I'd say first off, there's like not just the subject line. So keep in mind the from name, keep in mind the preview header, right? Or the preview text, like all that works in combination.
Yeah.
Right now, there's a conversation going on with custom from names and should you do them or should you not? They're not compliant with FTC. But what I mean by that is, let's say you have a subject line of like, try this to lower your blood sugar. The custom from name could be like something like your diabetes or diabetes news. And so someone might be like, oh, that kind of seems interesting. Like what's this from, right? In terms of subject line, I've seen a few different things work really well. So like listicles work extremely well. So for example, like the 5 best foods for diabetics, right? Or 3 foods to avoid. Like, so listicle does really well. And so I'll usually use listicle if I'm including a blog article in the creative. Otherwise, like curiosity invoking subject lines do incredibly well. So like, I'm sure you've seen those 1-word subject lines like cashews, right? Or like things like that. It's like, I remember BioTrust, like their best email ever, their best subject line ever, I think was cashews, right? Where it's
really? Okay.
Where it's like, what is that? Like, I need to open that email, right?
Is that like with a question mark and like doing like, I mean, we're talking cashews. About okay. And just kind of like to add to this question, like emoticons, exclamation points and all that, like let's say cashews, question mark, exclamation, whatever, or just cashews, or I know I'm getting like really detailed, sure. But like people like somebody who's starting out, they want to know like, should I put emoticons? Should I not put emoticons? How wordy should I get?
Yeah, for sure. So emojis, I've had like hit or miss. Like I haven't found that like emojis like blew up my open rates, but like sometimes they work well.
Okay.
Question marks, we ended up using question marks a ton for 2 different reasons. We saw it got really good opens, and for us, it felt more compliant. Like I don't really want to say like this will, lower your blood sugar by 60%. But if I add the question mark, it's compliant, and it's also like it invokes that kind of curiosity. So question marks actually do super well. Something that I saw had a ton of success was 2 words with an and sign in between. So it might be like coffee and diabetes, right? Okay. If you have diabetes or you're scared of diabetes, you're like, well, damn, I drink coffee, so I need to open this, right? So that combination worked really well. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can go about. I would say like test like crazy. Like if there was an offer that was working really well that we were sending to our list.
Yeah.
Like we were trying different creatives all the time. Like there was some offers that we were sending for a year that we had like 30 creatives that we tested, right? Of different combinations of subject lines, creatives, some short creatives, some long creatives. So yeah, there's so many different ways that you can go about, but for sure, like those 1-word subject lines do super well. Listicles do really well. And yeah, the ones that are kind of like clickbaity, right?
Yeah, I mean, people want to
we're
know
like
the five
benefit
foods
driven.
for your flat stomach or whatever. Everybody gets suckered into those. So,
Yeah,
I mean, I guess the whatever is old is new again. It kind of whatever works, you just keep doing it.
one last thing that came into my mind is like specific numbers do really well in general. So
Okay.
it might be like, lose, like, let's say 3 pounds, like using 3 pounds, or like reduce something by 33%. Like those kind of random numbers tend to do really well. I think part of it is like, it sounds pretty legit if like you're giving this very specific number.
Okay. So
Yeah.
lose 13 pounds would work better than lose 10 pounds. You're saying like kind of something a little bit more.
And maybe
okay.
even like lose 13 pounds within 5 days, right? Like it's very specific as well as benefit driven. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, when you said you test. So there's two questions that I have. I'll ask them both because they might kind of interlace. So first, what do you use to test? Is if there's a software or something that you can give our audience? Obviously, you guys have some pretty sophisticated stuff. But if somebody can't work with you and they wanted to kind of just start out, and then secondly, do you recycle emails? Like when you're testing, you see something does well. Do you just kind of like say 45 days later, I sent this again because it did so well? Or is there like a rule for that?
Yeah, really great question. And you'll be surprised by the answer to your second question. So for the first question, like, again, we built our own email software that we use. So like, we're just testing creatives within there. And then it's like saying, hey, you need to send this out again because of this revenue or EPC or opens or clicks. But there's a lot of ESPs that like you can split test very easily. Maripost is probably the best ESP for our industry. For anyone who doesn't know ESP, it's email service provider. So, whether it's Maripost, SendLane, GetResponse. But Maripost has a really cool feature where you can test like 3 different creatives to, let's say, 25% of your list. And then it's going to know the winner. And then it's going to send to the rest of your list that same day. So like most ESPs have really, really cool features like that. And so as long as you pick the right ESP, which is super important, like split testing is crazy easy. What I find hard is if you don't have a software like the one that we built, it's hard to then go through that data to like see like what's the best offer, what's the best creator, what's the best segment. Like that is kind of hard without a software like the one that we built, which is why we built it. I used to spend like hours in spreadsheets trying to see like what are the best 10 offers for this list. And it was hard to find that with our software. For the second question, generally, if I find an offer that works really well, like I'm going to hammer that offer pretty hard. And so it sounds crazy, but like there's times where I'll send the same offer to the same list twice in a week. I cap it at twice. But I always use a completely different creative. So let's say someone that didn't open that first creative might open the second creative. And I know that the offer is going to work, right? It's just maybe one creative didn't speak to them or one subject line didn't get them to open. But yeah, I send as often as 2 offers to the same list in a week. I keep 3 to 4 days in between that send. So it's not too recent.
Yeah.
I don't reuse the same creative to a list within 14 days. That's just the like cadence that I found works really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Generally, like in our space, like if there's a new offer that comes out that's super, super hot, like there's a lot of money to be made right there. And because there's so much crossover over all the different lists in the industry, it's like, let's hit it hard because this offer is getting $4 EPCs, So
earnings per click for everybody listening.
Yeah, earnings per click, which is a really important metric to look at for email. It's not the holy grail, but it's a pretty like important metric to be keeping in mind, especially if you're promoting affiliate offers via email.
Hope you found today's session valuable. If you have any questions for me or just want to connect, please feel free to visit my website, mariasparagis.com. That's MariaSparagis.com. I'd love to hear what you're working on, so drop me a line on any hot button issues your business is experiencing. And remember, don't worry about failure. You only have to be right once.